Hello friends. So chill season is upon us in Splatoon 3. And as I mentioned in my last Splatoon stage breakdown video, Flounder Heights is now here. Now we already compared the other returning stages from Splatoon 1 to their Splatoon 3 counterparts just to see how much has actually changed, and in some cases not very much, and in some cases it's just a completely different stage entirely, not even remotely the same. So go check that video out if you haven't yet. Today we're gonna just take a look at just Flounder Heights, and there's a fair amount to talk about here actually. At a glance it doesn't seem like much has changed, but there's actually a fair amount of small tweaks here, some of which I'm a fan of and some of which I am not. Rest in peace, big TV screen, I miss you! Let's hop right into it. So the first thing to note, and the most obvious change right off the bat that applies to the entire stage, is the elevation. This was the case with the museum as well, but in pretty much all cases of every ramp or slope in Flounder Heights, the elevation has been toned down, so the hills are less steep and the elevation is less drastic. For most of the ramps, you couldn't really tell the difference unless you were looking for it, but the buildings themselves are now actually only 2 stories tall instead of 3 stories tall. So you can see how they've toned down the elevation there. Hey guys, it's future editing Daniel coming from the future to interrupt my past self. I need to clarify a point here about the 3 stories versus 2 stories thing. So the main sort of building here where the 2 ramps are with the mesh bridge actually is still 3 stories. The difference is that the ramp up this secondary building here used to extend all the way up to the top, and now it doesn't. There's a lip where you have to sort of hop up instead. So that minor building with the ramp is now 2 stories instead of 3, but the main building is still 3 stories. That said, it is still not as tall as it was in Splatoon 1, but it is still 3 stories tall, so forgive me, just little error slip up there, my bad. But at least I caught it before I published the video, right? Okay, thanks everybody, back to my past self. Enjoy the video. Now, I actually do not mind this change. I think it's a good one because if you're swimming up the wall and over to the middle area, for example, if you were playing splat zones and wanting to get right to the zone as quickly as possible, it's faster, it's quicker to get up there, which I do like. Right away, the spawning area is closer to the next level down, but you still start on that fenced off little square, although it's actually wood and grass and with some stones in Splatoon 3 instead of just the concrete of the first game. Then you drop onto the next platform. This one was the grassy area in the first game, but now it is semi-grass and semi-concrete in Splatoon 3. Now in the first game, if you turned right away from here, there's actually a tree here. That's still there, but it's been moved up to a secondary little platform, and then that leads into a ramp. Now that ramp is actually there in Splatoon 1 as well. There's actually a split in the road. The left split is still there and pretty much unchanged. It leads onto the next rooftop, but the right split, the right path, would take you down a small alley and then drop you over here. That path is entirely removed in Splatoon 3's version of the map, so you can no longer take this alternate route over to the middle ground. The TV screen, as I mentioned before, is also gone. It breaks my heart. There's actually one on either side of this wall, and it would actually update in real time to show you the map and how inked it was, so you can actually glance at it as you're going by just to see what progress was being made. Now it's just this weird flower display case. I hate it. I hate it so much. Why? Bring the TV screen back. If the Wii U could run it, there's no way that there's a hardware limitation for the Switch, right? This platform is pretty much unchanged on this rooftop. You've got the little water tower, although it's funny is that in one of the trailers, we got a glimpse of the water tower, which tipped a lot of people off that Flounder Heights was coming, and that was the same water tower that was in the first game, and they actually changed it for Splatoon 3, so it's a bit funny because that little tease didn't even end up being in the game. This little alleyway area right before the middle ground where you could swim up the walls of the apartment buildings has been tweaked as well and just paved over. There's been some pipes added so it limits which walls you can actually swim up, and there's some grading along this wall that has been removed. Most egregious is they took away the trees though. Why'd you take away the trees, man? In fact, actually all of the grassy area around here is entirely removed in Splatoon 3's version of the map. Now, if instead of going right, if we go left left from the spawning area, first thing you'll notice is actually that the first platform here that I mentioned before is widened to the left. So it actually extends all the way to this far wall. Whereas before it didn't, there was a ramp and an alternate path up to that side wall instead. Then there is the main ramp up to the central area that remains mostly unchanged, although now you can get on top of this little pillar that you could not before. Over to the central area, there's these two little ramp parts and then a mesh bridge. But the platforms on either side of those ramps up to the mesh bridge has been scaled back in Splatoon 3. So now there's this little patio at the top there and another flower display case, and you cannot get on top of that platform at all. Can't ink up there, you cannot jump up there. They've completely blocked it off. So that actually narrows the amount of space over here by the middle ground where the splat zones would be. They've also walled off this section with a tarp wall that you can't ink, which was not there at all in Splatoon 1. Speaking of which, they really wanted to make sure that you can't reach the enemy spawn. I mean, they basically used the sheer verticality and then some lips over the edges to make sure that you couldn't already in Splatoon 1. That's still here in Splatoon 3, but they've added to it, meaning this side wall also has a huge gap in it, blocking you from getting across. And just about every ledge near the spawn has a lip as well, just really making sure you can't reach the spawning area and spawn camp your opponents. While not so much a change, they had that already happening in the first game, but they've really doubled down on the concept in Splatoon 3. Perhaps one of the strangest changes, but now there's this little pool of water here. I don't know what purpose this serves, but it is here. Other than that, there's some minor tweaks in some of the wall placement. For example, this wall just below the middle ground has sort of an L shape in Splatoon 1, blocking off one of the sides, and that L shape is reduced to just a line in Splatoon 3, so both sides are open. That's about it. Those are all the layout changes. All the other little changes, aside from some mesh missing here and there, mostly just come down to aesthetic choices. So the buildings look a little more diverse and interesting with like some brick and things like that added, and the little shops and storefronts around here are different as well. But those are just minor aesthetic changes. As far as the layout goes, that was about all I could find. So some walls removed, some walls added, some mesh taken away, and a TV screen removed as well. A most egregious change of all, if you ask me. I think Flounder Heights transitioned over to Splatoon 3 just fine. It didn't come out quite as intact as Museum d'Alfonzino, but it certainly fared better than Mahi Mahi and Hammerhead Bridge, which are basically new stages inspired by the ideas and mechanics of the old stages. Flounder Heights is a great stage. It finally adds a good amount of verticality to Splatoon 3's level design, which is something that has been kind of lacking in a lot of stages. Flounder Heights just has more interesting geometry. I'm happy to see it come back. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Hope you found it interesting or helpful. Let me know what you think of Flounder Heights down below in the comments, and as always, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before we end this off, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to my patrons and channel members, including, but not limited to, Greymage, Brenda, Tetra, Callie, Gail, Hylian Wes, Justin, Clifford Longhead, Midnight Naomi, and Bunny. Thank you all so much for the support and for watching, and I will catch you all next time. Bye-bye.